Good morning students, welcome to physical education class of class plus 2. Today we are going to discuss the second part of the chapter Biomechanics and Sports. In this module we are going to discuss with projectile factors affecting projectile trajectory with motion, friction, mechanical analysis of walking and running. Before we start projectile factors affecting projectile trajectory, we need to take a recap of what is biomechanics and sports. Biomechanics is the study of body movements and muscular activities. Sport biomechanics is the study of forces and stresses of human movements and their effects on athletics performance and safety. It plays a crucial role in injury prevention and performance enhancement. Biomechanical analysis benefits athletes of all ages and skill levels. Projectile. What is projectile? Object thrown into air horizontally at an acute angle under the action of gravity is called projectile. There are two forces acting on it. They are gravitational force and air resistance. The path followed by a projectile is called its trajectory and it is a parabolic path. The factors affecting projectile trajectory. There are 6 factors: initial velocity, angle of projection, projection height, air resistance. Under air resistance, surface area of the projectile, surface to the volume ratio, mass and velocity. And the 5th one is gravity, and the last one is spin. First of all, initial velocity affecting projectile trajectory. Initial velocity is directly related to the distance covered in flight. The speed of release depends on initial vertical velocity and initial horizontal velocity. Having higher horizontal velocity will increase the distance covered. The angle of projection will remain same and initial velocity will be changing. Second one, angle of projection affecting projectile trajectory. An object which is projected at different angles but the same initial velocity covers different distances. When it is released at an angle of 45, it covers maximum distance. The angle of projection will be changing, but the initial velocity will be same. Then height of release affecting projectile trajectory. The higher the level of release, the longer distance is covered in flight. The horizontal component will be acting on the projectile for longer duration, hence projectile will be covering a longer distance. Then gravity. Gravitational force is exerted by Earth on all objects. Gravitational force is constant for all the objects. Gravitational force decreases at the places of high altitude. The performance in jumps and throws is better at the places of high altitude. The spin affecting projectile trajectory. Amount and direction of spin directly affects the distance covered. If the spin creates low pressure on the top, the object remains in air for longer period covering longer distance. If the spin creates high pressure on the top and the object remains in air for shorter period and covers shorter distance. Air resistance affecting projectile trajectory. When a projectile moves through the air, it is slowed down by air resistance. Air resistance decreases the horizontal velocity of the projectile. Then motion. What is motion? Change of a position of a body is called motion. It consists of upsetting the equilibrium of a body. There are two types, linear motion and angular motion. The first one is linear motion. When a body moves in a straight line from one point to other in the same direction, it is said to be motion. It is said to be linear motion. The direction can be either in horizontal or vertical or inclined direction. It can be measured in feet, meters or kilometers, etc. Second one is angular motion. Angular motion is the motion of a body about a fixed point. All points on a body move in a circle about the same fixed central line of or axis. It can occur about an axis within the body or outside the body. It is measured in degrees. The next topic is friction. What is friction? Opposing force between the two surfaces that come in contact is called friction. It always acts in the opposite direction of the applied force. It allows us to walk, run, play sport. Lubricants can reduce friction. The types of friction, there are two, static friction and dynamic friction. Dynamic friction is further divided into two as sliding friction and rolling friction. First one is static friction. Opposite force that comes into play when one body tends to move over the surface of another, but the actual motion has not yet started. Static friction is the friction that exists between a stationary object and the surface on which it is resting. Once the object starts moving, the dynamic friction or kinetic friction takes over. What is dynamic or kinetic friction? The opposing force that comes into play when one body is moving over the surface of another body, it is called dynamic friction. So there are two types of dynamic frictions, rolling friction and sliding friction. Opposing force that comes into play when one body is rolling over the surface of another body is called rolling friction. For example, wheel and rolling skates. Second one is sliding friction. Opposing force that comes into play when one body is sliding over the surface of another body is called sliding friction. For example, ice skating. Rolling friction is less than sliding friction. When a cyclist moves the cycle, by the time we apply rolling friction, and when that ice skating is done, their sliding friction is applied. What are the advantages and disadvantages of friction? Due to friction, the objects can be placed at position and shaped. As the disadvantage of it, due to friction, there is wear and tear of objects. Lubrication is used to allow the parts to move easier and to prevent wear and tear. Greasing is done in the moving parts of the bicycle as well as machinery. The second one of advantage, frictional force helps to move the object by friction. It helps in running, walking, and frictional forces helps to move the object with high speed. For example, spikes are used by the athletes to run fast. Studs are used in soccer. And the disadvantage, friction makes it more difficult when one has to move the object. Excess friction can make it difficult to slide a box across the floor, walk through deep snow. The third one of the advantage, with the help of the friction, the ridges of skin of our fingers and our palm enable us to grab and hold objects. For example, in badminton, the player's grip to hold it. In roller skating, roller shoes are smooth surface and are used to minimize friction. Wooden floor is used in cycling, that is considered to be the disadvantage of friction. Then again the last point of advantage, the energy lost due to friction is in trying to move, the object is turned to heat energy. Then as the disadvantage, excess of friction means extra energy, thus energy is being wasted. Now let's pass on to mechanical analysis of walking and running. What is the difference between walking and running? In running is a process in which both feet are off the ground. That is called the float phase. In walking is a process in which at least one part of body or foot remains in contact with the ground. There is a double swing phase, and the swing phase is longer in running. There is longer stance phase, whereas swing phase is shorter in walking. The linear and angular velocity of the lower limbs is faster in running. The linear and angular velocity of lower limbs is slower in walking. Running requires greater range of motion and walking requires a lesser range of motion. Let's analyze the mechanical analysis of walking. The first phase is called as stance phase. Stance phase is the time when the foot is on the ground. It consists of maximum percentage of walking cycle. For the part of the stance phase, both the feet have a contact with the ground. The stance phase of walking is divided into 5 stages: heel strike, early flat foot, late flat foot, heel rise, and toe off. The stages of stance phase of walking. Heel strike. Foot first touches the ground and continues until the complete foot is on the ground. Early flat foot, the second stage. Complete foot is on the ground, and the early flat foot stage occurs when the body's center of gravity passes over the top of the foot. Purpose of this stage is to allow the foot to act as a shock absorber. Late flat foot, the third stage. Body's center of gravity passes in front of neutral position. Stage lasts when the heel lifts off the ground. Foot moves from being a shock absorber to being a rigid lever helping to propel the body in forward direction. Then the fourth stage, heel rise. Heel begins to leave the ground. The foot functions as a rigid lever to move the body in forward direction. Toe off. Toes leave the ground completely. This stage continues until the beginning of swing phase. Next one is the swing phase. It occurs when one foot is on the ground and the other one is in the air. Swing phase in walking is shorter than the stance phase. It is divided into 3 major stages: initial swing, mid swing, and terminal swing. Hip is extended to 10 degree and then going on to flexion, and knee flexed to 40 to 60 degree, and the angle changing its position from the flexion to neutral is the first stage, that is called initial swing. Second one, mid swing. Hip is extended to 30 degree, the knee flexion till 60 degree and extended approximately to 30 degree, and angle becomes dorsiflexed. Terminal swing. Hip is flexed till 30 degree and the knee is locked extension and foot changes its position from dorsiflex to neutral. This is the mechanical analysis of walking. Then in stance phase, you can see that the heel strike, and the second one, that flat foot, and the third stage, late flat foot. And then in the fourth stage, takeoff starts. So after that, we can see that it goes with the swing phase. Let's analyze running, mechanical analysis of running. Stance phase. Stance phase is the time when the foot is on the ground. During this phase, the foot and leg bear the body weight. The stance phase of running is divided into 4 stages. Initial contact stage, braking or absorption stage, mid-stance stage, propulsive stage. First one, initial contact. After completion of float phase, the moment one foot touches the ground is called initial contact and marks the beginning of the stance phase. The other foot behind you is off the floor and is in swing phase, braking or absorption stage. The moment one foot makes contact with the ground in front of you, body is now performing a controlled landing, managed via deceleration and braking. Front knee and ankle flex and the foot rolls into absorb impact forces. During this process of absorption, the tendons and the connective tissue within the muscles store elastic energy for use later in the propulsion stage. The mid-stance stage. The braking phase continues until the front leg is directly under the hip, taking maximum load as the body weight passes over it. The ankle and the knee are at maximum flexion angle, and this moment is called mid-stance. The last stage is propulsion. Body weight has gone forward of the front foot. Now this foot starts to propel you forward. This is achieved by ankle, knee and hip, all straining to push the body up and forward using elastic energy stored in braking phase. The propulsion phase ends when the toe of front foot, now it's behind you, leaves the ground, commonly referred to as toe off, and you are once again in float phase. The swing phase of running. At the moment of toe off, one leg has travelled as far as the back as possible and the heel starts to lift. The height the heel reaches and the returning drive of the knee is dependent on the power of hip extension achieved and will be greater at high speed. Stretch reflex mechanism is compared with stretching back of a slingshot and then letting go. Extension of hip is equivalent to pulling back on slingshot. Letting go results in the leg firing forwards rapidly, leading with the knee. Once the knee has passed under the hips, the lower leg unfolds in preparation once again for initial contact, marking the end of the swing phase. This is the analysis of running. In stance phase, you can see the initial contact is made by the foot with the complete resting on the ground, and in the mid stance phase, the second leg is folded and the first leg is about to take off. And now in the propulsion stage, the second leg is about to land and the first leg is about to tow off. And in flight time, the first leg is in flight mode in initial swing and the second leg is touched on the ground. And in the swing phase or in the mid swing, we can see the first leg is folded and the second leg is about to take off. And in terminal phase, we can see that the first leg is about to land and the second leg is in the propulsion mode. So this is the analysis of running. Thank you. Stay at home, stay safe. May good God bless you.